Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right. Welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams, y'all. I've got a repeat. Mike F Bauer back in the house. He's a sales consultant and regional sales manager for Delta Defense. He's got his expertise in sales partnerships and sales leaderships. He's led his teams to 65 million in sales. So he's going to bring the heat for us today. Mike, welcome back, brother.
Man, I couldn't be more excited to be here, brother.
Man, it has been so awesome watching your journey from when you came into our mastermind group, Apex, to now. And you just put on your first webinar last week. So congratulations on that. How was that experience? How did it feel putting yourself out there like that? Like, you know, you're badass at what you do, but still you're doing all that stuff. It seems like for the first time, right?
Yeah, man. It's kind of like anything, you know, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You just got to go all in. You just got to take that first shot. And I think just like anything, the first one, if you look back after a long amount of time, you look back at your progress, the first couple times you've done anything, it's never awesome. It's never great. And so for me, I always try to perfect everything as much as possible before I go and do something. But for this, it was just like, you know what? Let's just dive in. Let's use some content. Let's have some conversations, and let's see where the content goes from there. So it was really fun. But you know, just being the first time that we do everything, it was different.
For sure. I got to jump on for about half of it, and I was like, dude, these guys probably have no idea this dude is spitting gold. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of the concepts and what you were talking about, you know, if you've been managing sales teams for any amount of time, you know, probably for a year plus, then you understand, okay, I know exactly what Mike's talking about, and he's giving me some solutions to common pain points, you know, versus if somebody just came in and tried to listen to that at an entry level in sales, they would have had no idea what you were talking about. Like, what, you know, salespeople don't do exactly what you tell them to do. I'm confused, you know?
I think,
all right, brother.
I think that's accurate. I think it's accurate.
Yeah. Okay, so I was scrolling through your Facebook, I think it was yesterday, and you posted about this company called Black Rain Ordnance. This looked cool as shit. You being in, you know, the firearms business, you get to do cool stuff like this. So you and your team went out to their headquarters, and I guess just tell us what y'all did there.
Yeah, so the people that you see here in this picture, if you're watching the video, is our mid-central team, and so they're the states that we're talking about Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri, and so they did their quarterly meetup. And what we try to do is we try to do stuff when we get together with partners of ours. Now, one of the partners that we work with is a place called Black Rain Ordnance that's known for really awesome rifles. I mean, they joke that if you stick around long enough, that they'll find a way to Cerakote you. And sure enough, I mean, they've got these skulls up from from cows and stuff like that are Cerakoted in these really awesome designs. And so just a really cool experience. And their facility sits on 300 acres. They're continuing to build out more and more. Their facility is, I think they're on their 4th or 5th facility, and they're on their like 5th expansion of that facility. So they're just growing like crazy. And it's always fun to be in an environment where, as a team, we're trying to get these guys to grow as fast as they can. But then we're also being able to go out and do cool things where we're shooting on the range, shoot cool guns with people that know what they're doing. And so just the overall experience was just incredible.
No, it looks amazing, and you can curse, brother. This is an explicit podcast. You're good to go. He's like just shooting shit apart. No, that looks cool as hell. What is Cerakoting?
That's just the paint that goes on on firearms. And so when you have a firearm, you got to make sure that these things heat up very quickly. And so there's different types of paint that are going to work. And when it comes to Cerakote, that's a specific brand. And Black Rain is the only non-automotive. So I'll rephrase that. Outside of the automotive industry, they're the #1 user of Cerakote. So they're heavily doing custom work all the time.
Okay, so you said that they were a partner, and what I'm assuming is your team goes out to their facilities, and whenever they have these classes or they're putting on these events and things like that, you're able to kind of not upsell them, but sell them on the insurance that you guys put together for them. And so, you know, what I would call that it's not really a referral partner because you're going out and doing it for them, right?
Mhm.
But it's still a partner nonetheless. When I've always looked at referral partners, especially in the home service space,
Mhm.
as three levels of involvement, right? You give me all your data, I mark it as your strategic partner, or give your client some kind of discount or something like that because we're marketing through you guys, or you guys set appointments for us, or you guys actually sell our your sales people actually sell our products. So there's kind of three levels of involvement there. When it comes to these strategic partnerships, how do you think salespeople, sales teams, companies should be set up to fully capitalize on them?
Sure. So the way that I always that I'll kind of describe it is I think that we're almost like an in-person affiliate. And so what we do is we're partnering with these ranges, retailers, and firearms instructors. And when they have self-defense style classes, CCW classes, concealed carry classes, things like that, we're able to sell our product that includes education, training, and self-defense liability insurance for firearms owners. So these are things that outside of the education and training, these facilities they really can't do. I mean, they can try to package something together, but it would just be almost impossible to do. And so when we're with them, we're able to go in front of their classes and say, look, this can't be the last time that you train. You got to make sure that you continue the training. You should do it not just at the range, but at home, which a lot of times people are like, firearms training at home? How does that work? It's like, well, it's the situational awareness, the avoidance, but then also the liability insurance that comes with that membership, with USCCA membership. So the cool thing with these partnerships is when we go in there, it's not just a hard sales pitch. We're actually able to provide value above and beyond. We tell people all the time, you are there to be a benefit, not a distraction. And so when our salespeople go in, if they're trying to twist someone's arm, like that is not how we do business. It's much more of an educational approach. These are the things you should be aware of. These are the things that you should prepare for. And for those of you that see this as a no-brainer, you can get started right away today. And here's this. So the cool thing is we bring all these benefits in the classroom, but then there's also the additional stuff with certifications. With Black Rain, for instance, they do a ton of law enforcement certifications where these guys from SWAT agencies and police stations are going in to get certified so that they can teach the other officers on the force. And so while they're going through that curriculum, we're a national training organization, just like the NRA and some of these other ones. There's very, very few of them in the firearm space. But what they can now do is they can go through our curriculum and now they get that additional exposure.
Now that's massive because so many people just want you to send them your referrals. So many
Yeah.
people just want you to send them business, and I feel like the way that that translates in terms of setting up referral partners or strategic partnerships is, one, you're bringing value, right, because of the knowledge and the education and the training that you guys are bringing to them, and then two, they're able to double down using your curriculum. So there's 2 points of value there, and then obviously is there a monetary compensation in that situation?
Absolutely. So we pay for
Okay.
every lead that we get in front of.
Okay. Fantastic. And so there's also the monetary compensation on top of that. So I feel like if you can bring the value, you can set up these strategic partnerships as long as you can go, you can bring value and you can walk away without making a sale, but your part has still been upheld. I think if you
Mhm.
set up the partnership that way, it's going to be a lot easier to grow those partnerships versus it being purely transactional. Like, hey, you send me business, I'll send you business. That
Yeah.
usually never amounts to anything unless there's intent behind it. And obviously, there's
Yeah.
a huge amount of intention behind what you guys do. It's all systemized and SOP'd, and basically, you guys go in there and follow steps 1 through 5 to execute and to ultimately get those sales, right?
Yeah, and it's very cool too because we can set up these partnerships in a way where so if you were to go into a in the firearm space with like a range, for instance, if you wanted to jump into that and you started breaking everything down, you would find that the merchandise, the firearms, the holsters, the bags, all of that stuff, the margin is actually really small. It's the training that actually has a much bigger margin. I mean, we're going from single digits to now very, very high double digits potentially, or even triple digits. And so if we're able to help them in that space, for example, we have events that we'll go to, and it's something something where there's a large crowd of people that we'll get in touch with, and we'll find out, have you ever thought about additional firearms training and that sort of thing. And what our guys are doing, and what we try to teach them to do, is it doesn't mean they have to lock someone down for a membership on the spot. What they can do instead is talk to people about their partners that they have, funnel those people into their partners' classes, knowing that when they see them there, they're going to go, wow, this was a great class experience that I had. That was the guy who talked to me at that RV fair, wherever that I saw him. And now he's talking about this thing. Of course, I'm going to sign up. So it's kind of like it's a cyclical thing that it's just really fun.
Absolutely. Looking kind of past that initial transaction and into future ones. I love that. So you said recently quality is massively overemphasized in sales. What do you mean by that?
So I think this is cyclical in just about anything that you learn. But for me, for example, my son is 6 and he's just now picking up on skateboarding, which is funny because I was the same age when I started skateboarding. If you take any sport, anything that you've done, there's a couple ways that you can learn. You can learn through doing, or you can learn through watching someone else or getting a coach and that sort of thing. I don't want to take away from the importance of reading books and going to seminars and learning from coaches, but it can't take away from how important it is to focus first on volume. So if there's volume and margin, we want to make sure that we go and we just do that thing as much as possible. So in sales training, for example, I would much rather give someone just enough information that they can go out there and they can start learning the process through doing. And then as they continue to get leads and they continue to rack up these amounts of sales that they're trying to do, let's say, then we can take that person and we can start going towards from the volume, getting leads, getting in front of people, working the sales system, to then doing the margin, which is, all right, now we can start pulling the levers of how you can make how you can close at a higher percentage, how you can have a higher upsell, how you can get more per transaction. And so for me, I think that a lot of times people are overemphasizing, how do I make sure that this is perfect? So we're just talking about that webinar that I ran. If I look back in 3 more webinars from now, and I look back and say, man, this thing was a great success, it's because I'm not following it. I'm not doing enough repetitions. I'm not practicing enough. Whereas instead, I should just go and do the thing and then learn through doing, knowing that each time it's going to continue to get better and better.
Yeah, it's almost taking the intent out of it a little bit so you don't overanalyze, overthink it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that first one, that's just getting the first one out of the way. If you just kind of mow through the next 6 or 7, by the time you look back at those 6 or 7, you'll see a natural evolution happening. We're
Mm-hmm.
human. That's what we do. We evolve, especially with things like this. So, but then now you've got a data set of 7 webinars that you can pull from. And like you're talking about, be able to actually tweak things here and there and change conversion rates or closing rates or whatever the case is that you're going to do. I see this so often, and you can tell me if you see the same thing with your new people coming in. You give them the model, you tell them to go get some reps, get that experience, you know what I'm saying? And then they start trying to change the model before they even do it for their second or their third time. They start thinking that, oh, hey, they haven't done this millions of times. I'm going to somehow figure out the cheat code. Does that ever happen in your business?
Dude, all the time. And so this is something that I actually learned. I refer to it with my team called the life cycle of learning. I probably ripped that from somebody. Maybe I made it up. I don't know. But where I learned it from, ultimately, there's 4 different stages on anything that you learn. And when you first start out, so I always thought that when you started out in something and you have no competence, your confidence would be really low. But it's actually not true. So you think about the people that have ever interviewed with you, they jump on that interview extremely confident. Man, I'm one of the best salespeople you'll ever have. Put me in, I'm a rock star. But what ends up happening is we put them in, we get them in training, and all of a sudden they start learning some of the systems. And they're like, wow, there's a lot more to this than I ever thought. And as their competence goes up, it drops their confidence. And so that's that thing where you have to actually go through that progression of, at first you're really excited, but then it drops down. And then as you continue to get those reps, you come up with kind of like like a wavering confidence. And eventually you get to that level 4 kind of rock star status. So it's just something that we've seen over and over again. And so we try to put resources into play. And the best way, though, is to try and get someone through that as fast as possible. Is you got to help them build momentum quickly, because the worst thing that could happen is they get lost in that pit where they're starting all high confident and then it drops down. So that's where, getting those reps through, giving them a little bit of training through that portion of time. That's the best way that we found to find success with new hires.
What do you think about incentivizing incentivizing them early in their training? You know, like a first sale bonus, or when they complete their training, some type of training bonus or anything like that. I know, that was something that worked for us really well in door to door, but it's not
Mhm.
necessarily universal, right? Because you guys pay, what, 60% or 70% of their income's coming from their base pay, right? And so, what do you think about that? Like in y'all situation where there is a base pay at play?
Yeah, so ours is probably flipped a little bit more than that even. So it's going to be higher commission based for sure, but we do have a base. And the reason why we do that is I think that you have to incentivize people for the task that you ultimately want them to do. With us, I want our guys to be extremely hungry with the sales that they have, and when they get in front of a lead, we know that once that person leaves that class, it's highly unlikely that they're going to reach out to that salesperson one to one so that salesperson can sign them up. And so what we have done is we've tried to make sure that we do incentivize them with uncapped commissions and things like that are very typical of a sales role. But we
Mhm.
also understand that if all this is, like we talked about before, is strictly transactional, that's not exactly what we want. We do want this to be a partnership. I want my sales guy to be able to walk into a partner and go, so that last class we did this, this was the outcome. How can I help you make it better and vice versa? And they talk through it. On top of that, as we said, we're a national training organization. And so there are other things that go on that our team doesn't necessarily touch. But what we talk about is even though it might not be our fault, we consider it our problem because it's our partner. And so for
Mhm.
us, it's important that we do have that base there so that our guys understand that there are going to be times when I'm not necessarily selling, but it's actually going to help me in the relationship that I have. Now, as it comes to the bonus structures and things like that, there's a couple different incentives that we do that we found to be effective. And the reason behind it is, so we do it where someone passes through training, they get a bonus, and if they pass when they pass their property and casualty license because it's got an insurance product attached, they get a bonus for that as well, right out of new hire training. But on top of that, another thing that we've done that is kind of a 1-2 punch for our culture is our team in particular has patches. Now, I would laugh at that if I heard like, okay, patches, you're going to get people excited about patches. In the firearm space, patches are
Yeah.
pretty regular. But what we end up doing is, so we've got our Midwest Moneymakers patch that everyone gets when they pass training. But then we have a couple other things that, again, incentivize the things that we want. And so we've got top salesperson type patches. We've got 100% close rate in classes. We've got that patch. My favorite one, we've got guys that aren't in a dense area of population where they're driving like crazy. And so we actually have a patch where they have the most amount of payouts per partner. So instead of having just 3 partners, maybe you have 17 that you pay out in the course of 1 month, and you did more than anybody else in our region. Well, you're going to get what's called the crop duster patch. So it's just these silly things. It's these silly incentives. But I'll tell
Yeah.
you, we thought it was going to be so silly. But every single meeting that we jump on, what do you think? They've got these things in the back of their office,
Mhm.
and they're proud to display these things, just like as if it were a top salesperson
Trophy.
thing. So,
Yeah.
so it's multiple different things that we try to do to incentivize.
I love it so much. The reason I brought you back a second time is because you and I align in so many ways. And one of my favorite things was these chloroplast cutouts that we used to make, and we had a set for each office. So whoever won it, they had it in their office, and they would hold it out, and it would be like exactly what you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
the wireless winner for the month, or the highest quality salesperson, or rookie of the month, or whatever. It
Mhm.
was a way to, like, okay, the top salesperson's always going to get the prize, the trophy, all those things, but you've got to diversify your incentives throughout. And that's
Mhm.
actually a couple of episodes ago exactly what I talked about. So it's fantastic. All right. So let's talk more about you and
Mhm.
consulting, right?
Yeah.
So you're starting this journey where you're going to start doing sales consulting.
Mhm.
um, where do you think you're going to fit into company strategies? Where do you think they need help? And then what's your approach going to be to helping them out?
Very cool. Thank you for asking. So for me, here's what I realized about 7-8 months ago. The thing I talked before, I used the term volume and then margin. And what I found is that with our sales team, we caught a wave that was extremely fortunate, especially for myself in the position that I was in. I started in the call center. We wanted to start this outside sales team. I was one of 3 to be pulled from it. And since then, our sales team has done well over 9 figures, close to multiple 9 figures. And so The cool thing is that I was able to be a part of something right before the 2020 big push for firearms, where everyone just rushed to get training and they went to get firearms because they didn't know what was going to happen, and all that happened. If anyone who's in the firearms, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Ammo was hard to find and it was triple the price and all that. So our team started 2 years prior. Actually, it was a year and a half prior. And so we had 1 year to ramp up, and then all of a sudden, massive big push. And so we went from 30 people to over 100 in the year of 2020, even though we were shut down for half the year. And so what that allowed me to do is we went on a complete rampage of being able to hire people. And so just like reps and sets, it's so important. We got to go through a lot of that. Well, what ended up happening is we hire a bunch of people and we go through these iterations. We started with, well, let's grab people that are really great from the industry. And that worked for a little bit, but then we're like, well, we got these couple people from the industry, but then there's other guys that were these sales guys from the industry and they're really good. Maybe we should focus more on the sales guy. So we started hiring more salespeople, but then we realized, well, if they don't know the industry, we have to teach them on that, right? So it's that cycle that we went through. But the blessing behind it, there was one week where myself and our other regional manager at the time, we traveled and we told our recruiting agent, when we get back, we want over 30 hours in that week of just interviews. And they had over 35 for each of us that next week. So we got a lot of reps and sets in that most people wouldn't have that type of opportunity. From there, we continued to build the team. But what to your question of where do we fit in, what I found is that I am very much a visionary. I see the big picture and I have a lot of ideas that I can bring to the table. But the problem is, if you don't finish those ideas and you don't implement them and you don't do it in a way that's scalable, that other people can learn from, that they can build from, all of that is no good. And so where I see a lot of opportunities, I think there's these sales teams that are run by visionaries that really wish that they could go from working in the business to working on the business. But here's the problem. We always talk about it's who, not how. So let's go and find the who. Let's go find an integrator for the business. But we forget about the fact that the hiring process is a sale. And if you don't have things in place to sell an integrator on why they should come into your business, if everything's just a mess, if it was just someone going through and saying, let's try this and this and this and this and this, and everything is at 70% completion, nobody is going to want to work in that business because they don't trust that you're going to follow through on their ideas. You're just going to come up with your own. And so I think that it's really important that people start putting together, how do you structure these things in a way that an integrator can at least go, okay, you've got this for me. Let me step in, bring my expertise from where I'm at, and now we can start cleaning up that hurricane mess that you had, but we can kick it into the next gear.
I love it so much because it's incredibly true, and being in the upper echelons of these mastermind groups, that was everybody's, battle cry. I need an integrator. I need an integrator. I had people try to hire me in the damn room. Like, hey, how much are you profiting a year? I'll pay you this or I'll pay you that. And I'm like, dude, that's not going to happen, because I've always been more of a hybrid. Visionary doesn't last very long for me. It lasts about, I would say, 6 months out. That's about as far visionary as I go out. The rest is heavy integrator, right?
Mhm.
And so I couldn't agree with that more, but the visionary does need to be able to at least put key players in place, lay out a roadmap, and be able to show the integrator, like, hey, you've got a team that you can coach here. That's the best way I can say it. The visionary is the president, you know, and if you're gonna recruit a coach in, because that's what an integrator is. They're the coach that run the systems, they run the plays, they do some strategy, they do some fixing of the systems, but for the most part, they're running what you're giving them. The
Mhm.
talent pool, the organization, the facilities, the tools, they're basically stepping in and running with that. And they can't do that if you don't have it set up first. So there's this place I think you're going to do really well in, which is when maybe they've hit that first million off of just being a badass, and like so
Yeah.
many entrepreneurs you and I know, they're just badasses, right? They can do a little bit of everything. They got sales, they got marketing, they got some technical skills and all that kind of stuff. And so they can put together, a good home service company or a good
Yeah.
sales company or whatever the case is. But then they hit this ceiling, and the ceiling is, all right, we need to lay everything out. We need to SOP it out. We need to create a sales program. We need to create a fulfillment program. We need to dial in our ops. We need to make sure our staff is happy,
Mhm.
HR, all these different things, so that when we do hire that integrator, all he or she has to do is scale all those things. So I think you're in a good position. I think you're thinking about it the right way for sure. So
I think
go
there's
ahead.
one other thing that I want to add to that too. So one of the other things that I see is I learned this from someone recently that a lot of times these conservative minded businesses, and I'm not saying politically, I'm just saying, these growth but conservative minded businesses, a lot of times they always feel that there is something that they're missing. There's like, hey, we're doing pretty good, but there's just this, if we only had this thing, I wish I knew what it was. And what we've learned when we kind of heard that and we dove into our own business right now on our sales team, we realized that a lot of times we go, yeah, this is cool, but there's got to be something else. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't hire outside talent, but I am saying that a lot of times it's sometimes we try to make it the easy button of, well, if I just find that person. Well, if you build it, sometimes you're going to find that the people you already have are going to be that best person. And so for me on our team, I don't have, I do have the blessing of, we have a very big company that, we've got over 700 employees in total for our company. And our outside sales team is close to maybe 200 with the ops team. So we've got the operations there. But when it comes to the sales system, strictly with the people, I actually work with one of our managers. So my manager, Kaylee, is my go-to person. Every time that we come up with something, tomorrow we're coming up with a marketing mastermind for a dozen of our official partners. And we're doing that together because I know that together we'll have great ideas, but she's the one that's going to go, that's cool, but maybe we do that on the next one. Let's do this first. And she's able to kind of parcel it together. And so my point is, if I were the type of person to go, all right, I wish that I had this type of person and bring them into my business, and I overlook someone that I already had, man, it's great to continue growing, but how much does it cost you to have a bad hire? And I'm not just talking money, I'm talking culture. If you've got someone who's already good, you should double down on the person that's there. Not always is the best case, but a lot of times you might have that person already working with you, and you should consider how you can help them leveling up. Because worst case scenario, you go and you bring an integrator in anyways, and they help you build that person's position because they
Right.
already understand the problems that you're running into.
Now that's a great point. So many times when I'm doing consulting, whether it's on the marketing side or the sales team side, I identify that person early on. I'm like, who in your business is going to run this program? Because I know you're not. I just know straight up you're going to go back to default. So you got to have somebody in your business that is going to execute on this. And I'm not saying every visionary is that way. Some visionaries are
Right.
very good at running the play. Um, but they have to have someone, especially when it comes to like a CRM or something like that.
Mhm.
Who's the person that we're going to train when this is all said and done? And you need to be able to say something and then them go and do it. Because you can't be a visionary if you're having to do it every time, you know? And so their answer is always, hey, I'll hire you. And it's like, no, you can't afford that. I'm sorry. Can't afford me to give up my freedom. You know what I mean? So, um, but yeah, I think you're headed in the right direction, brother. Um, so what's next for you on the personal side? I know you're investing in real estate. You know, I know
Mhm.
you're spending a lot of time in the gym. You're developing yourself. What's next for you personally, and how do you think that's going to scale your success on the business side?
Yeah. So as we're building out these systems within the business that I currently work in, I'm going to continue to build out those frameworks for sales consulting because I think it is something where even if it's here, just do this. Maybe it's a digital product, maybe it's a mixture of digital and in person, kind of virtual, but
Mhm.
it's here. Use this and just. I promise you that this is going to work for you. And if it doesn't work for you, I promise to work one-on-one until it does. Because I just know that these are simple frameworks that are going to work in just about any sales company. So I'm putting that together to make sure that we can take the things that I've learned and I want to be able to give that out. And of course, nothing wrong with making some money while you're doing it. What I'm going to do with continue to do is as we're making money as a family, we're taking that money and we're putting it investing into our real estate. So we've got a commercial building, we've got a couple residential, we've got storage unit facility, and so for me, I'm very much not that typical person of clock in, clock out, have a 401k, do all that. I actually don't do any of those things. I'm always working and I'm always taking our money and we put it into real estate. So a lot of times people would say maybe that's risky, but I believe that it's more risky for me to give my money to someone in something that I don't understand. And I really understand sales and I really understand real estate. And both of those things get me excited. So that's what's big for me. That's the personal goals.
That's fantastic, brother. Well, we had you on the show the first time, and you went over your legacy. Then, has anything changed since? I know you're leaning heavier on the consulting side. So, any adjustments to that answer?
No, so I think you asked me what meant to me. And for me, it's taking the knowledge and information I have, roll it to the people around me that I love, but especially my kids. I had a massive impact when I heard someone say, don't tell your kids, show them, because more things, as Ed Milet says, are caught, not taught. And I saw that in my own life. And so I want to make sure that as I'm continuing to grow, going to different events and doing things on a real estate, especially, I try to involve our kids, especially my boys, as much as possible, because even if they don't learn a bunch of stuff, there's going to be some things that they're going to catch from time to time. I have faith, at least, that they're going to then be able to use as they continue to grow.
And speaking of caught, not taught, make sure you follow Mike F Bauer on all social medias, because he's putting out value and great content constantly. If anything, you'll get lucky and see us kind of do it back and forth in the comments on one of his posts or on one of my posts, and there's gold in there. I promise you, there's so much gold in there. We have a lot of fun on social media.
I think we put more value in the comments than we do our actual posts.
That's how it works, man. That's how we're like, I'll post something and then Mike will comment, and it'll just be this freaking SOP on how to execute what I just posted. It's beautiful. I love it. Love it so much. All right. I appreciate you coming on the show again, brother, and getting to chop it up with you.
Likewise, man. Anytime. This is one of the most fun things I do each week.
Absolutely. We're just gonna have to do it quarterly from now on. Quarterly.
Love it.
It'll be great sales teams. Let's get building.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.